In this video, I'm continuing the series of looking back through some of the photographs which I enjoy. They're not necessarily the greatest photographs in the world, they're not masterpieces, they're not beautiful shots, but all of them either tell a story or provoke a memory or just excite me in some way visually. So join me, have a look at some of those photographs, and I'll see if I can excite you with some of the too. Roll titles. Well, hi YouTube, Brian James, I'm Micro Four Thirds guy with you once again, and in this one I'm on the third of these little photo series. The previous two have been looking at people, and there are a couple of people on this one, so don't get me wrong, it's not totally devoid of people, but this one's more about things, some things that have excited me in photographs. And there's a lovely little bit of planes, trains, automobiles and boats in the middle, which you might find interesting, so keep watching for them. But let's make a start at looking through some of my photographs. As I say, they're not masterpieces. They were never intended to be masterpieces. They weren't professional shots. They're just shots which I pulled out a few weeks ago when I was looking through the photographs to bring you, because lots of people have asked to see some of my photographs. And most of my photographs I can't show you because I don't own the copyright on some of them. And a lot of them have particular things where I've sold them to clients. So they were professional jobs, and I'm not willing to necessarily show them. So these were photographs I just took for me. So let's see the first one, and let's concentrate a little bit on this, on abstract. I love taking abstract photos. Abstract, where you take a part of something and you show it out of its context, of its full self. So if I was to, for instance, take a photograph of a door, you'd see it as a door. It would have a handle and hinges on. But if I was just to take that door handle, especially from a strange angle out of context, it takes on a new life. So let's have a look at the first one. The first one is this one. This is a bench seat in the middle of Carlisle. Nothing special, but there's nothing particularly exciting. I've taken so many photographs where there's bench seats around and you see a bench seat. And I was in town, I was thinking to myself, I want to do something, but I couldn't think what. And I glanced along the seat, and I saw that wonderful little piece of metalwork at the end, the arm of the seat, but it just had that hole in the end, almost looking like a target. And as you got the wooden slats where you'd sit on, going towards it, it drew the eye naturally to that hole. And I thought, you know what, that would be great. So what I did is on this one I decided, right, I really want to get the aperture very wide. I want to have it so that I've got a very shallow depth of field. And I'll concentrate just on that bit of metalwork, just on that hole, and see what happens. And I thought this was fabulous because it's one of them, it's not a clever photograph, it's not a complicated photograph. It's very simple, but it does do an interesting job of showing an abstract here. So you can see the planks of wood. I keep on looking down. I've got the photographs in front of me, so if I'm looking away from you, that's what it is. I can see the wooden struts leading the eye to that hole, almost like a target at the end, almost like somewhere to aim for. And the background is nicely shallow focus, really out of focus, so it doesn't take it away from that. But the little bit of colour, the little bit of blue and red also help to just draw the eye to that spot. It's not a particularly colourful shot generally, but those little bits of colour in the centre, really being just where that hole is, lead the eye to it as well. It acts as that extra little magnet. And this is one of those shots I really like. I just, spur of the moment shot, literally put the camera down. I wasn't even looking through the viewfinder, to tell you the truth on it. I had the flip-up screen down. I was sitting down looking beside me because I wanted the camera to be actually on the seat. And it worked out really well. Let me know what you think in the comments, by the way. If you like them or dislike them, I'm just going to scratch my neck. If you like them or dislike them, let me know in the comments, because it's really interesting to hear. Let's have a look at the second shot. It's almost an abstract. It is showing whole objects, but it's showing these objects as being something there, but I'm missing the context of where they are. So this, to me, is still an abstract, but this is a totally different one. These are these sort of blaster guns that you can get, where you can suck water up in a swimming pool and then put it out almost like a water cannon towards people. Great fun for the kids if you're in swimming pools. They're predominantly made of foam. But what I loved about this was a regular irregularity. And what do I mean by that? Well, you've got sort of 3 levels, 3 layers of these things hanging there, but there's no regularity to them. They're all higgledy-piggledy. They're not nice and straight and perfectly laid together. So they're sort of hanging there, but there is 3 distinct parts of it. I love the primary colours of them. I just think the primary colours stand out so well. And I think that's part of what the charm is. It's just that beautiful brightness. It's fun. It does sort of make you, well, it gives you a sort of feel-good factor. The sunlight, these were taken at a shop, a beach shop in Mallorca. And I just walked past it and I just was so drawn by the colours. I had to take a photograph. And on this one, I've gone for a wider depth of field, much more wide. Not totally wide because there is still a fall off at the back. But I wanted all these subject matters to be in focus. I think if I'd put this into a very shallow depth of field and just had maybe 1 or 2 of these in focus, I think I would have lost it. So I needed to have that little bit of extra depth of field over the previous photo to make this one work. And when people are talking to me online, when people are putting messages in about the exposure triangle, why you would use aperture priority, why would you use speed shutter priority, and all these sort of things, it's about choice. It's about given ability to try. Now, I did actually try this one with a shallow depth of field at first, and it just didn't for me work. I don't even have that shot anymore now. But for me, it was a case of by using aperture priority and having a fast enough lens, I could actually play with what I was doing, mess around with things, and it just worked nicely. So for me, this, by not having the super shallow depth of field, was a choice, and it worked. So a little bit more abstract. So let's go to the next shot. And if you're wondering, as I say, why I'm looking down here, it's because all my photos on my iPad as I'm talking through them. What I did say about planes, trains and automobiles, and a boat too. So let's start having a look, and we'll start with the planes part. I've got a few photographs on this one of planes, so let's start. And the first one is a photo which I do not like. The one I do like, this is an example of what I don't like. There's 2 photographs which are almost identical, which I'm going to show you. The first one is this, and this is a McDonnell Douglas F4 Phantom. Now, this was a jet designed about 1958, went through all the 60s and 70s in various air forces in the world, supersonic Mach 2 jet fighter. And this is in the Solway Aviation Museum in Carlisle in Cumbria, as the next few photographs are. And they do an awful lot of restoration work to really look after the aircraft they've got. And this aircraft, at the time of taking this photograph in 2018, was going through a bit of a restoration. And you can see on this one, it's had a really dark, very glossy, shiny nose. But if you look a bit further down in the fuselage, it's dull grey. Now, this was partway through. The dull grey was being replaced by a green and grey camouflage, which made it look fabulous when it was finished. But this was partway through. And I really wanted to make something of that nose, that bulbous, bullet-shaped nose on there. And I wanted to do that. So what I did is I was using my 5D, my Canon 5D full frame, and I had a 17mm zoom lens on it. And I wanted to get, on this one, a particularly wide depth of field. I wanted to be able to see the whole lot, basically, because I wanted the whole aircraft to be visible so you could follow the lines of this sleek jet fighter. But by using a 17mm lens, which is a really wide lens on a full-frame camera, it gave me the ability to put some distortion into it. So you could see the bulbous nose was made more bulbous. It dominated the shot. It was the main thing of the shot, which then led you down the aircraft. Unfortunately, there was a few things I didn't like on this shot. The first one being the helicopter just to the left-hand side. It's straight behind the nose, and it took that distinct shape away. It blended into it. It took some of that eye focus away from the nose and onto itself. And in itself, it's nothing. You can't see anything in the helicopter. It's just, it drew it away for no reason. The other thing is, if you look inside the engine cowling, you'll see that it looks, well, it looks like a piece of wood where the wood's starting to rot. And in actual fact, it was a piece of wood where the wood's starting to rot. And it didn't look so good. The other thing I really was disappointed on this, it was a gorgeous evening. It was a really nice evening. The sun was going down, and there was a lovely purpley pink glow in the background just at the horizon. And you can just see it on this, but it has no real impact. And I was disappointed by it. If I tried to accentuate and that, it spoiled the whole film. But what I did find is it did put a wonderful light, that pinky glow across the whole of the photograph. But it just didn't have enough impact for me. It was too subtle and just looked like a sky, a hazy sky. So what did I do to fix that? Well, it's a thing I've said several times on the channel. Use your feet. We're too used to standing in one place and trying to get the camera to do all the work. So I did. I moved about 4 paces to my left. 4 paces. So instead of looking at the port side of the aircraft on this one, I was now looking at this, which is the starboard side of the aircraft. And instantly, everything changed for me. That pinkish hue in the sky was just that little bit more prominent. Not a huge amount. It didn't dominate, but it was that little bit more prominent where you could notice it more and it had an impact. And you could understand why the aircraft had that pinkish hue to it, which on the previous one, it just looked odd. But the main thing for me is there's nothing of particular note behind the nose of the wonderful shape of the radome on there, showing it in its newly painted glory. And it was very, very dominant. It really does draw the eye to that first, and it dominates the whole photograph. But also had a slight change in angle on the body of the aircraft, and you can see more of the body, you can see more of that grey paint, and that shows the contrast between the pre and the post restored. Now again, as I say, it's not a fantastic photograph. Was I going to be able to publish this somewhere? Not really. Was anybody going to be interested in it? Not really. Did I like it? I absolutely love it. It brings back a really happy memory going around those aircraft at sundown on a nice August night, or 7th of August it says on here. A nice August night, so summer 2018, and being alongside one of the things I love, which are fast jet aircraft. It just brought some really good memories back to me. But a far better shot, this one, than the first one. And another Mach 2 fast jet fighter, but this is the English Electric Lightning, and this is actually one which wasn't an RAF one, or it's in RAF markings. This is an F-53, which was a Royal Saudi Air Force aircraft originally, but it's been put up in Royal Air Force markings. I think of Treble 1 Squadron from the Royal Air Force. And this I just like. It was a little bit later in the day. The sun was starting to go down again, but you know, this was just a different sort of sun. It's a different day. This was earlier on the year. This is the 4th of May. And this aircraft was sat there on the grass, and you've got that beautiful golden hour coming in. If you look at the grass, it's got that real warmth to it, that the sort of yellowy, tobacco-y colour further forward, going to the lush green further back. But this aircraft, which is capable of twice, or was capable of twice the speed of sound, was very unusual with its stacked engines, one on top of the other. And if you look down, this is basically a tube containing engines with a pilot strapped on top of it in the cockpit, which seems miles away as you look down. Again, a very wide angle lens on this one. This gives that accentuation of the length of the aircraft, and also drawing lines to where it's going to be going. You can almost feel speed in the aircraft, even though it's tethered to the ground. It almost feels as if it's drawing you in at high speed, at Mach 2 to where it's going. And where it's going is straight off to the sun. The sun is just off the canopy there at the far end. So looking at this, the shape draws you through. The area which is on, the little hard standing, again, because of the wide angle lens, seems to have converging lines and draws you forward. You almost feel as if you're flashing forward in with it. I love the fact that the sky is almost clear, but you've got a wonderful graduation of the sky from the dark blue in the corners, almost blackish blue, right away through to that beautiful whitish yellow of the sun. And it's a nice gradual photograph the whole way through. Again, this one was taken on, I think this was actually taken on a 7D. And it would have been taken with, what size lens was on this one? This was a 10mm. So a 10mm APS-C lens on the 7D. And to me, it just fitted nicely. It was just a lovely photograph. And again, anything but technically brilliant. You know, there's so many aircraft around that they get in the way in the background. And you can see that it's not a flying plane, but it does look as if it's lined up, ready just to open those throttles and speed off at twice the speed of sound into the distance. I love this shot. My final plane shot is this one. And again, this is a very, very different thing. So, well, the last one had a very wide open a very wide depth of field, so you could be in focus from front to back, and again a very wide angle lens. And wide angle lenses do accentuate that wide depth of field. It's very difficult to get a shallow depth of field with a wide angle lens. It's trying to cram an awful lot in. Well, this one is different. This is a Hunting Jet Provost T Mark IV. Now the Mark IV was quite a rare one in the Royal Air Force. There were many Mark IIIs and then the later Mark Vs, which had the pressurized cockpit. But this is another one of my abstract photographs. And the abstract part of it is obviously the navigation light, the red navigation light on the port wing. And this, to me, I just love. Very, very shallow depth of field. I went for that deliberately so that it really highlighted that dome. That red dome with the gorgeous chrome and the flathead screws. Sorry, the flat blade screws, which go through that, into the really, really strong red of the colours of the aircraft, the training colours of the Royal Air Force at the time. But that light stands out, that dark red. But what it also does, because of that very, very shallow depth of field, the cockpit and the jet intake and the fuselage, they're all subtly out of focus. They're all very, very soft. So once you've had that thrill of looking at that thing, which is the intensity of that light and that wonderful semi-elliptical shape which goes back, it's almost like you've got an airflow over it, spreading out from the shape of it. It's almost like, again, like a bullet in flight. Once you've got used to that, your eyes will naturally be drawn back to follow onto the cockpit at the back. But it's not dominant in the picture. It's not the thing which you're really looking at. You're looking at that light and that chrome and that particular semi-elliptical shape. I love that. So this was one of the ones which I really did enjoy taking. Now, before I go further and see the last couple of photographs in this bit, thank you very much for watching the channel. I really do appreciate it. But if you're not a subscriber, please consider being a subscriber. It costs you nothing, and as I say all the time, it really does make such a difference in getting YouTube to spread these photographs to more and more, these videos to more and more people. While you're there, with little buttons down there, while you're there, give me a thumbs up if you would. Even if you don't like the video, just give me a thumbs up. Again, you're doing me a big favour by getting so that more and more people can see and enjoy the videos. And also, if you haven't done so, leave me a comment. Leave me a comment on what you're saying. Tell me if you like them. Tell me if you don't like them. Tell me what you see in my photographs. I'm really interested because these photographs are very personal to me. There are things which I will like and people will just not. And vice versa. There's photographs which I've taken which I'm not so keen on, but people love. So please let me know in the comments below what you think of these photographs. And if you do enjoy them, please let me know on that one too. So let's carry on. Let's carry on. I did say about planes. And the next one was trains. So let's have a look at this one on a train. And this is one of my favourite train shots. This was a little bit set up, but again, it was just me. I was actually playing with the camera. I was out just playing. I quite often take a camera out and I'll take shots just for the sake of it, just to practice techniques. The only way I think to get a good technique on things is to practice and to learn the bad things. Work out why something has gone bad. Work out what you can do to put it right the next time. Then go out and take those same shots again and again and again until it's 100% right. And this one was a mistake. This one wasn't meant to come out like this. My intention was to have the platform perfectly in focus, all the way back and perfectly steady, and have a train coming through at speed blurred. But what happened is I got a bit of a shock when I saw this, and a pleasant shock too. I'd set myself up. I had a tripod. It was about 9 o'clock at night on a late autumn night, so it was very, very dark. And the only light in there was the natural light in the station. So I adjusted the white balance to suit. I put it on a tripod. I got it so that I had a very, very wide depth of field. So the whole of the station, this is Carlisle Citadel Station in Carlisle in Cumbria, UK. And I got it so that the whole of the station was nicely able to be seen in the shot. Then I waited. Now, I had a shutter speed on this of about 2.5 seconds. So it was just over 2 seconds. And I waited for a train to come through. Now, some trains will stop at the station, but I also know that some trains come through at speed. And this was a train which wasn't stopping, it was coming through at speed. And I waited and waited. And then eventually it came through. And I waited for the engine itself to go through, then just clicked on the carriages, a passenger train, clicked on the carriages, the photograph was taken, the train had gone, and I was left with this ethereal look of a ghost train almost going through the station. And that's what my intention was. But it came out even better because it was a passenger train, and because the far side of the bridge was actually well lit. It meant that you could actually see the far side of the station through the windows. So if you look at the right-hand side of the bridge, which is going across from right to left, you can see the whole bridge. But also, it's not a reflection, which is what I thought it was at first. I thought it was a reflection of the bridge, but it wasn't. It was the whole bridge going across, and it was the walkway going down from it on the far wall, the opposite side of the train. We were looking straight through both sets of windows on the train, and because it was moving so fast, it looked like one constant window. And the beauty of it, with the slow shutter speed and the train going so fast, was this wonderful blur, this ethereal ghost train-like image of the train going through. But I think it actually made it even better by having the view of the bridge, where the train almost looked as if it was not there. It couldn't have been there because you can still see everything, but it's almost in your subconscious. And I love that. I love the fact that I managed to nail the rest of the station being perfectly there. And, you know, that was the beauty of using a good tripod for a long exposure. But to me, this was just one of those wonderful, happy mistakes, which I also learned from, because it now means that if I ever want to do another shot like this, I know how to do it. It's there. And this has actually been picked up by a magazine. This got picked up by a magazine to be printed a couple of years ago. This was from February 2019, and it was the magazine came out just before lockdown, and I never got a copy of it. Because of the lockdowns coming in, I never actually got a copy of the magazine. I've never seen it in the magazine, unfortunately. I did get the check, which was very nice, thank you very much, but I would have loved to have seen it in print, but I didn't. That's that one. The other one, which is the last of my train ones, is this one, and I love this shot. This was a shot which I really do like, and it could have been sitting two ways. Again, we're talking depth of field. I think maybe if I had a bit of a shallower depth of field, it may have worked. I didn't get the chance to try it. I only had the chance for one shot, and I decided to make sure I got it in. I would put it at a fairly wide depth of field so you could see the whole lot. But this is an area that most people aren't allowed in. This is a Type 66, a Class 66 locomotive. I think they were mainly built in Canada in the 70s and 80s. And the British Railway network had a huge amount of these. They really are an incredibly powerful workhorse, and still are. There's an awful lot of rail companies still using the Class 66, including direct rail services, DRS, which is the shed that I'm in here. And you don't get to get into engine sheds very often. You've got to be in by invite. We had hard hats on and day-glow coats, and we're in a group, a very controlled group, because they're quite dangerous places. And we were allowed into here on a visit. And to me, this was just wonderful. It's almost like taking your car. If you take your car in to get some work on the brakes or something, they put them on the hydraulic lifts and lift them up. Well, this was a full railway loco on its hydraulic lifts. Each one of those lifts could lift 35 tons. And there's half a dozen down there. I think there's either 4 or 6 of them for the whole length of the train. So you've got a huge amount of lifting capacity. And it's almost dominating. To me, being raised up, and we're looking up towards the train, but it's a very dominant looking train. It doesn't look soft. It has a power about it. You can feel the power of the train. You can feel the power of that fantastic engine inside. And to me, it just seems to be on a mission. And it's almost as if it's leaping out past you, leaping out over you to go off and attack the rail network. It's almost, to me, it reminds me almost of a Pegasus horse launching and flying over the top of you. Maybe a bit over dramatic, but that's what it feels like to me. And I think actually if I'd had a shallower depth of field, I think it may have spoiled it. I think the majesty of the train being high and powerful and huge, I think comes over really well in this, and maybe a shallow depth of field would have spoiled it. So I like this. I think it's good. That the available light was okay, but for a handheld shot, this came out really well. And it's just one of those shots which I look at again and I think to myself, it was one of those lucky flukes. I shouldn't have got this. These were snapping just to put something together for a rotary visit. But to me, it seems to be one of those photographs which just excites me. I always feel there's a power behind it, and there's a majesty in the train. It makes you respect it, and I love this photo for that. Hope you enjoy it. Now, I did say planes, trains, and automobiles. Well, this is you've seen this car on every one of the titles I've done. This is my old Audi TT. Unfortunately, no longer with us. If you remember seeing a video about a year or two back, this poor car met something of a violent end going through a fence and across a ditch. It wasn't me driving. I hasten to add, I wasn't driving at the time, but it did meet something of an end. But this was taken a little bit earlier. This was August 2018. And this was not meant to do anything other than me take a photograph of my car. It was just a nice day. I just washed the car. And I love the form of that TT. I think they look gorgeous, especially the drop-top ones. Especially with the crash hoops on the top. I think they really set it off. But I was out in the car with the camera like I normally am, and I'd got out of the car. This was at Bits Park in Carlisle, just beside Carlisle Castle. And if you look at the very top left-hand corner, you see a little bit of Carlisle Castle in the distance. But this is a sports field at Bits Park. And I just pulled up on the gravel road, which I think really stands out there, just to enjoy some sunshine. And I thought, well, take a photograph. The car looks rather nice. So I did. And that was it. Never thought anything else of it. And I just liked the fact on this one, the line of trees at the back. It was very separate. You had the line of trees at the back, then a line of sports field, a beautiful green, a glowing green grass. And then at the bottom, you've got this rustic roadway. It's not a tarmac roadway. It's a gravel road area. So there's texture in that. There's even a demarcation line of the grass between a more longer grass between the road and the beautiful sort of sheen of the smoother grass in the distance. And those wooden posts, I think, just add to it a little bit. But the main thing was the car, and that blue colour stood out against the rest of it so well that it just really appreciated it. I just really loved it. So much I put it onto one of my internet blogs, not vlogs, a blog when I still had did a web page with a blog on. And I got an email from this one with somebody. Again, it was just a throwaway photograph, which I liked. I didn't expect anybody else to like it or appreciate it. And I got a photograph. I got an email from a magazine wanting to use this photograph. And it just goes to show that so long as you can get something out there, people may have an interest in what to you is just a throwaway photograph, just a happy memory of the car. Other people can use it. And this was in a motoring magazine about touring, and it was about touring around Cumbria. And it was just, they wanted a stock shot of a car, but they wanted something which was right. And because it had Cumbria, they'd done a search on cars in Cumbria. This had came out, and they asked to use it. And the only thing they did is just gotten to blur the registration number out. So on the photograph in the magazine, it's just got a yellow number plate on. But again, I just love. In fact, actually, I think in the magazine, I think that they'd airbrushed the number plate out altogether, so it just looked blue. It may have been that. I'm seeming to remember that a few years ago as yet. But yes, this got done, got published. I got a nice fee from it. So it just goes to show that something you take as a snapshot can be seen from others as it being a real professional shot. So never worry about your snapshots. Never worry about whether you're just taking it as a family thing or a holiday thing or whatever. Someone somewhere might have a use for it. So that was my Audi TT. The final one of the transport type ones is this one. And this is a lovely little shot. This is one of the steamboats on Ullswater, which is in the Lake District, just beside Penrith. I've actually sung on a couple of these boats because I'm an entertainer, as you probably know. And I've sung on these boats out on Ullswater a few times. It's a fabulous experience, especially when the water is really still and you're going off on a lovely summer evening. And you've got people on there enjoying the transport because it's meant as a pleasure boat. It's over 100 years old, this boat, and there's a few of them down there. And when you're entertaining somebody on the boats and they're just sipping cocktails or sitting and having a drink and looking out over the Ullswater and seeing the hills of the Lake District all around you, it's an emotive sight. And to be singing on that and with us all going around you is absolutely fantastic. And this one I just took a photograph of. And why I like this one, again, slightly wide angle lens, very much a broad depth of field on this one, so everything's in focus. One or two things I don't like, if I was to do this, if I was to edit this properly, which I haven't edited it properly, the little bit of tree stump sticking out from the banks at the front, I would get rid of because it does sort of catch my eye, plus a little bit of clumps of grass. The only bad thing was the water wasn't super still. which means that the reflection in the water, which does come out, would have been much better if it had been still water. You can't have everything, you know. I did have a word with a big man upstairs, but he said he wasn't going to still the water just for me. But what I really like about this is the colours have come out just as they are on the real thing. They're very muted. They're not in-your-face bright colours, except for the funnel. The funnel is just there, and that little bit of red just draws the eye. But also, what I really love and really draws my eye to it in the first place is the wooden slats around the bridge area, the wooden panelling around the bridge. I really think that stands out beautifully. But because we've got a wider depth of field, your eyes don't just hang there. The eyes will use that as the main pot to go into, but then they'll spread, and you see that beautiful dramatic sky and the wonderful hills and the texture on those hills behind. If I'd used a shallow depth of field, that would be missing. That would just be a blur. And I think from my point of view, that's just as important as the boat is itself for the photograph. As I say, not a technically brilliant photograph, but again, it's something I just like. It makes me feel happy. And it tells a story to me, which I can then tell other people about how I sing on the boats and what I was doing. And I can describe them with that photo. Last two photos for you, you'll be pleased to hear. And if you haven't done so, please consider becoming one of my Patreon patrons. There's a link below, because my Patreon patrons, these people here, are the ones who really keep my channel going. And I really do appreciate all the input that they put to it. But also, if you don't want to do a regular payment to the channel, then below you'll find a Buy Me a Coffee. So if you get buymeacoffee.com, there's a link again in the description below. Then you can give me a one-off to help me keep the channel going. Anyway, on to the last two photographs. And we have this one. I was across at Tacoma in Mallorca in 2018, October 2018. And we'd gone up to the north corner of the island. And there was a lot of people who were windsurfing up there. I didn't have the best lens for it. I didn't have a long lens. I think this was done on something like a 100mm lens, and they were quite a distance away. So these photographs I thought were just going to be a waste of space. I was going to have to crop in quite heavily, and that was going to cause me problems, but I was willing to accept that just to try and record something. But what I found when I did that was the beautiful way that it came out. They were super sharp, these photographs. And when you look at something like this one, that wonderful orange colour of the sail just stands out. It's awesome. The pose of the guy on there, just nicely caught. But it's the drama. It's the drama of that beautiful blue-green Mediterranean Sea that you've got. And the power which is coming through from the surf on the top, the spray on the top, where the water breaks into white water. And I just looked at this and absolutely loved it. And I had a few photographs like this. I've got quite a few, and I just pulled one out. But they were all equally as good. And yes, I've had to crop in quite heavily. Yes, I've probably got a little bit more of a graininess than I wanted to. I was lucky because it didn't become noisy, and that was one of the things. It came out almost as a photographic grain for some reason, which I'm really impressed with. But it wasn't noisy. It didn't get that multicolour noise. I haven't denoised this at all. But it just seemed to come alive the more that I cropped into it. The swirl seemed to get that little bit more granular. And as I say, with the blue-green of the water, that beautiful sort of greeniness around where the spray is, I thought it was just fabulous. And this, again, was one of my favourite photos. But I did take quite a few in this series at the same time. And I would say from all of them, I had equal amount from each of the photographs, which were the keepers. Bad part, there was a lot of non-keepers on there. So, you know, this is where a little bit of persistence, a little bit of self-confidence to keep on taking the photograph. Don't look at the back and chimp and think, oh, I didn't like that. It's obviously not a long enough lens, I'll leave it. Because if I'd done that, I wouldn't have got any of those shots. And that brings us to our very last shot. And again, it's from the same scene as where we were watching the surfboards. But this one is a totally different sort of surfboarding picture. And I didn't need a long lens for this one. The one that I used was fine. And again, it's not a special photograph. There's technically, you know, it's sitting at a bit of an angle. The sea should be rolling off to the left-hand side because that's further down. But ignoring that, that's one of my pet hates. And if I was to re-edit this, I would crop that a little bit so that it levels it up. But I did just love the sight of all of these wind sails hanging in the air. The airfoils, the kite part of them, and these tiny little people on the surface of the sea, below, but they're not, the people aren't the interest in this. The interest for me is those little dots in the skies, the glorious colours of them. And again, that lovely sea. I don't know why, even looking at it now, I think to myself, but that's not a special photo. Why on earth have I put that in? You know, there's so many faults on it. But at the same time, I do like it. It does make me feel good. And maybe that's what photography is about. We keep on talking about having fun with your photography. You don't have to impress anybody else except yourself. Nobody's paying me for these photos, or they shouldn't have been, except the couple which accidentally got paid for. But nobody had commissioned me for these photos. These photos were to just capture a moment in time. And if you can get something which can do that, make it consistently smile by those photos telling a story or prompting a memory, then surely that's good enough. So this photograph, the least technical photograph of all the ones I've shown you tonight, is possibly one of the most important ones because it does make me smile. Anyway, thanks very much for watching this video. Have a wonderful Christmas if you're watching this before Christmas, because it's the 21st of December today. So if you're watching this before Christmas, have a wonderful Christmas and a very, very happy New Year. And I look forward to seeing you on the channel in probably just after Christmas, actually. I'll do a video bit after Christmas, but certainly I look forward to seeing you on the channel in 2025. Till the next time, keep taking your camera out, keep having fun with your photos, and I'll see you soon. Bye.